Hello, welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm Sherry Duckworth, and joining me today is Mr. Duy Le. He is the Director of Autism Services at the Child Study Center. Thank you so much for coming and talking with us today, Duy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Autism is a topic that we see often in the news, and a lot of celebrities have really brought the subject of autism to the forefront, and it's caused people to ask a lot of questions about it. But just to start us off, if you can give us a definition of what autism is so that we know exactly, because there are so many different viewpoints of it.
Yeah, well, I can tell you that autism is a neurological disorder.
Yes.
And from a standpoint of a behavior analyst, individuals with autism lack desirable skills that we want them to have. We want them to perform, but they don't perform. Skills such as socialization, socializing, interacting with other people, communication, self-help skills, play skills. Those are the areas that individuals with autism, they lack, they have deficits in. And then some of them also have what we call behavioral excesses, of behaviors that they are doing too much that we don't want them to do, such as hand flapping or biting, aggression, hitting, kicking, throwing things. So the bottom line is that people with autism are given that diagnosis because of deficits in some areas, particularly communication and socializations, and then also presence of unwanted behaviors such as stereotypy or hand flapping and problem behavior like aggression and such.
So for those who are suffering with those behavioral issues and they've been diagnosed with autism, I'm sure if I was a parent, the first thing I would want to do is get on the internet and find out as much as I can, but it's so overwhelming. Where would be a good place for someone to start their research? What do they need to look for?
Okay. Yeah, the internet is wonderful, but it also, there's a lot of misguided information out there too. Without a doubt, by far, behavioral intervention or ABA therapy is the one treatment approach that have been recommended, and it is the treatment of choice. ABA therapy is one therapy that has a lot of scientific data to support its effectiveness. So, I would say start with ABA therapy, search for that, and hundreds of studies, scientific studies published in peer-reviewed journals have shown that ABA therapy is effective at decreasing problem behaviors and increasing appropriate behaviors in individuals with autism. ABA therapy had also been endorsed by the American Academy of Pediatrics, for example, as well as the former U.S. Surgeon General.
Now, the ABA therapy, can you tell us what that means and what does it look like?
Okay, all right. ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. And applied behavior analysis is the application of the scientific principles of behavior analysis founded by the Harvard psychologist B.F. Skinner. Now, behavior analysis is a science that studies the environmental causes of behavior. With respect to autism, although autism is a neurological disorder, and like I mentioned earlier, people with the diagnosis with autism have too much of unwanted behaviors that we don't want to see, such as aggression, hitting, biting, but they also lack skills in important areas such as talking, communicating, and socializing.
So just to take a couple of examples, how would you apply ABA therapy to, let's say, a child who's showing a lot of aggression?
Oh, okay. The very first thing we do is we objectively define what aggression looks like. So is that the case that throwing a chair, pulling hair, biting, and then after that, we try to identify the causes of the problem behavior, of the aggression. So is it the case that the child is biting other people to get a reaction from others, or is this the case that when they cannot get something, they would aggress, or is it when you require them to do something that they don't want to do, they would aggress? And then once we know why they behave the way they do, we will teach them appropriate ways of accessing those reinforcers. So if it is the case that, when a child cannot access M&Ms or French fries or a particular movie, they're aggressive, then we teach them appropriate ways of accessing those things instead of aggression.
So basically it comes down to their inability to properly communicate. So it sounds like that's a big reason for the whys, whether why they're being aggressive, or why they may be throwing a tantrum.
Right. There are two reasons why we see aggression occurs, I think. One is that they're unable to access, unable to communicate, to access those things that are important to them, but also so they may start out with crying or screaming, but then also people around them, and I want to emphasize that I'm not blaming anyone, but a lot of times parents and teachers and caregivers don't know how to manage problem properly, and so they inadvertently reinforce problem behaviors, and so that you over time you see a child more and more using problem behavior to access things that are important to them, or to terminate things that are that they don't like. But I want to emphasize that, yes, it is very true that behavior analysts are very skilled at decreasing problem behaviors, but behavior analysis or applied behavior analysis, ABA therapy, is equally effective at increasing desirable behaviors as well. Like I said, communications and socializations are the two areas that we focus on quite a bit.
Now, the children who have trouble communicating or even speaking, because we hear a lot of children who are autistic prefer not to speak or speak very little sometimes. If they're working with someone on that already, let's say with a speech therapist, if they're doing musical therapy or occupational therapies, we hear all of these different options are available. Then would the ABA therapy still come into play? Would they be able to do multiple therapies?
Oh, absolutely. I think ABA therapy should be a component of a child's overall treatment. Treatment intensity, or the number of hours in therapy per week, have been shown to be an important factor with respect to outcome. So let's say if a child, typically a child will be in speech therapy for 30 to 45 minutes a week, whereas a typical child, at a child study center, on the average will receive about 20 hours of intensive one-to-one therapy per week. So the intensity alone would justify including ABA therapy as a component of treatment.
How do you determine, depending on, I guess, the severity of the autism, how is that going to determine how much ABA therapy is required?
Okay. The more the better, in essence, typically, we recommend to parents, if they are able to do it, attend our program full-time, which is 7 hours a day, 5 days a week, or 35 hours a day. So we start with that, and then we'll reduce intensity only if parents cannot afford it. We still keep the high intensity of 35 hours a week, but what we focus on from let's say from the first 6 months to the last 6 months depends on the child's progress. So we may transition the child, in our case, a lot of times we transition the child to the Jane Justin School at the Child Study Center, which is a state-of-the-art school for kids with developmental disabilities. So we transition them over there, but we still would like to suggest that ABA therapy is implemented at full-time there in those cases as well.
Now, how can educators and parents both, how can they find ABA therapy for those children out there, their students, their own children who are really needing help right now? What's the best resource for them?
Okay. Applied behavior analysts are certified by the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. So those who are certified are called Board Certified Behavior Analysts, or a lot of times you hear them referred to as BCBAs, and the Texas Association for Behavior Analysis has a directory of behavioral consultants on its website, so that will be a good place to start, you know. Or parents can also get on the Behavior Analyst Certification Board website, and there they can search for the registry of certificates, and they find certified behavior analysts in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
And for those that are watching that would like to be able to have an applied behavior analysis for their child, to be able to get them into ABA therapy, but financially maybe they're not able to afford, you know, to actually go somewhere and see someone regularly, what words of advice do you have for them?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, ABA therapy is fairly costly, you know, and the big reason for the high cost is salary. Like I said, you know, some kids are in therapy for 35 hours a week of one-to-one, and the tutors that we have at the Child Study Center, most of them have a bachelor degree. They are very, very skilled, very, very dedicated, and so it costs money to maintain the payroll of these tutors who are very dedicated, you know, and 35 hours a week.
Right.
Fortunately, DARS, which stands for the Department of Assistive and Rehabilitative Services, that's a state agency, they recognize that the Child Study Center is a center of excellence, and they awarded us a multi-year grant to provide cutting-edge therapy to children at low cost. So for a kid who enrolled in our program full-time, 35 hours a week, it costs us about $5,000 a month. And some families, through the DARS grant, pay as little as $50, which is a 99% discount. So, you know, we are very thankful that we have the DARS grant. In the Dallas area, you have Easter Seals of Dallas. They are also a DARS recipient, so they will be able to provide sliding scales to families as well. Now, insurance does pay, but that depends on the policy. Okay. So.
That's good to know. No, it's great because you're just giving a lot of hope to parents out there, knowing that there's help, that they have somebody they can talk to, they can contact, and it just sounds that ABA therapy is a really a great way to really get help for their autistic child. So we just want to thank you for what you're doing. It's an incredible work that you have going on and what you do for the community. So thank you for coming and talking with us today here at Joy in Our Town. We really appreciate that. And thank you all for watching Joy in Our Town today.